Living with chronic pain means that pain isn't the only thing we're dealing with. There's also the conversation that begins inside our minds during a flare. Sometimes that conversation sounds like prediction, sometimes it sounds like pressure, and sometimes it sounds like a very harsh voice telling us we should be handling things better. Learning to work with that internal dialogue can become one of the most helpful tools in navigating chronic pain. So, today I want to share a few simple tools that can help us begin shifting the way we speak to ourselves during pain flares. These tools are simple, but simple doesn't mean insignificant. Sometimes small shifts inside our own minds can make a real difference in how we move through difficult moments. When pain flares, the mind often creates a sentence very quickly. Sometimes that sentence sounds like prediction, sometimes it sounds like pressure. And sometimes it sounds like a very harsh voice saying things like this: Why can't you handle this better? You should be doing more. You're falling behind. One helpful tool is simply pausing long enough to notice the sentence your mind just created. Because many times these thoughts happen so automatically that we don't even realize they're there. But when we slow down and notice the sentence, something very important happens. We begin separating ourselves from the thought. Instead of the sentence running the moment, we become aware of it. And that awareness gives us a chance to take control and lead inside the experience instead of the thought leading us. And that awareness is often the first step in changing the way we speak to ourselves during pain. You might begin to notice what that sentence usually sounds like for you. Sometimes it's prediction, sometimes it's pressure, sometimes it's judgment. Once we start noticing those sentences, there's another simple exercise that can make the tone of that self talk much easier to recognize. Try saying this sentence in your mind out loud. Sometimes when thoughts stay in our minds, we don't fully notice how harsh they actually sound. But when we say them out loud, the tone becomes much clearer. For example, you might hear yourself say, Why can't you handle this better? Now try saying a calmer sentence out loud instead. This is really hard right now. Or, my body is having a difficult moment. When we hear those sentences out loud, the difference in tone becomes very clear. One sentence adds pressure, the other offers support. Pay attention to how your body responds to each one. Often, one sentence creates tension while the other can bring even a small sense of relief. Once you begin noticing that tone difference, another helpful tool is creating a simple supportive sentence you can return to during pain. A sentence you've practiced before, a sentence that brings steadiness instead of pressure. The sentence doesn't have to be complicated, just something simple and supportive you can return to when pain flares. Here are a few sentence examples you can use to build from. This is difficult, and I'm taking it one step at a time. My body is struggling right now, and I'm taking care of myself. This is a lot, and I can handle it. Having that sentence ready gives you something steady to return to when your mind begins predicting the worst. As you repeat that supportive sentence a few times, you will begin to notice the tone inside your mind softening. There's another way to make that supportive sentence even more powerful, and it might feel a little strange at first. Try saying your supportive go to sentence to yourself in the mirror first thing in the morning. When we live with chronic pain, our brains often start the day scanning for problems. Now, I'm a big believer in listening to your body and paying attention to what it needs. But before we even realize it, the internal dialogue has already started and the spiral often begins before we even get out of bed. How bad is this going to get? What if today is one of those really hard days? Having that supportive sentence ready can make a real difference. Saying it out loud to yourself in the mirror helps you notice the tone you're speaking to yourself with, and it gives you a chance to intentionally start the day with support instead of pressure. Because the way we speak to ourselves, especially first thing in the morning, can shape how the whole day feels. Over time, starting the day with support instead of pressure can gently change the whole tone of the day. Living with chronic pain is difficult. There are many parts of this experience we can't control. But the way we speak to ourselves during those moments is something we can slowly begin to work with. It doesn't happen overnight, it doesn't happen perfectly, but does happen gradually. Because when the internal dialogue softens, the nervous system often softens too. And learning to speak to yourself with steadiness and compassion becomes one more tool in the toolkit we're building together. It's one way we begin taking the lead inside the experience instead of letting the thoughts triggered by pain lead everything. And if you're living with chronic pain, I'm really glad you're here.